Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Save Our Sisters Unplugged podcast. Today's beautiful guest is the co-host of the Happy Edit podcast, a certified mindfulness coach, an experienced yoga teacher, and a yoga therapist in training. She empowers women professionals, small business owners, and high achievers to leave burnout and stress in the ashes while they achieve balance, clarity, and creativity in their work and daily life. Here to share how her struggles with stress and anxiety led her to be a burnout coach, it is my pleasure to introduce Mrs. Tess Jewell-Larsen. Welcome, girlie.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited to be here with you and to be a part of this podcast and just community that you're creating. It's just such a wonderful space.
Oh, well, you're welcome. I love having people on that have high energy and great vibes. And, it kind of just helps me stay centered, so to speak.
Yeah, it's good to be surrounded by people that, give you the energy, but also the grounding at the same time. It's not like too much and it's not too low. It's just that nice balance.
It's like the Three Little Bears and Goldilocks is just right.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. I am so excited to speak with you today because ever since our conversation, I was like, man, I've been burned out. And I've been really like being conscious of what is really making me burn out. So I'm not going to keep you too long. We're going to go ahead and dive in because I know it's almost dinner time there in Spain.
Yeah. Well, it's getting there. We eat later here.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. So like early dinner is like 8. Early
That's
dinner.
An early dinner?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Early dinner is like 5 o'clock here.
Yeah. No, I know. But no, yeah. So we're used to eating in Spanish time. So I think we tend to eat around 9:30 on average.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is definitely late. That is definitely late. At 9:30, I'm looking for my last cup of tea of the evening to wind me down. And I'm looking for maybe a sound bath to lull me to sleep.
Or help me like an hour and a half after that. And then that's me.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and get started. And I want to take you back to the beginning when all was well with the world. What was young Tess like?
Oh, young Tess was very adventurous and had a mind full of just big imagination. So I grew up in Oregon, on a farm in Oregon. And so young Tess would just explore the grounds of the farm, inventing stories, running from puddle to puddle, jumping in them, and just singing my heart's way. I was very much into singing as loud as possible. I'm sure all of our neighbors loved it.
Well, I think all kids at that age do everything loudly. So I think they should be over it.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, there's a little bit of land there, so hopefully there was a little bit more space and it wasn't like just in their backyard. But yeah, climbing trees, a lot of time outside, very little time inside. That was kind of, our parents were like, yes, just go out, spend a time outside. So whenever we'd meet up with our friends, it was like, all right, let's go explore outside.
So you were born in Oregon then?
Yeah, I was born in Oregon. Yeah.
Okay. How did you end up in Spain?
Well, when I was 9, my dad got a job in Barcelona. So we moved to Barcelona when I was 9, and we were there for 3 and some years. Then we went back to the US. And I never fully readjusted. Because I was so young when we moved to Spain, I always kind of, I just had a different view of the world. I wasn't small town farm girl anymore. I was very, not going to say I was a city girl either. I was just kind of a mixture of lots of different things. And so then when I was in my last year at university, I went to Japan in high school. I went to Japan. Was there for 6 months. I loved it. It was amazing, amazing experience. Lived with the host family there. Went back to the US, went to university, and I was like, nah, this is not my place. So I came back to Spain, but not to Barcelona. I came up north where I'm now in the region called Asturias. And it's a lovely like combination of Oregon, very green, mountainous, there's ocean, but then also kind of has that mixture of like, you know, the Spanish culture that I grew up with in Barcelona. So it's this kind of really lovely mixture of my two homes when I was a kid.
Oh, that's amazing. That's an amazing opportunity to be born in Oregon and then move all the way to Spain. Like all of the cultural differences and cultural norms that you're used to is now clean slate. We're all Spanish now. And I'm sure you speak the language.
Yeah. Yes.
How long did it take you to learn that?
Well, when we moved here when I was 9, like as a kid, you pick up things quite quickly. I went to an American international school, so I didn't go to a Spanish school, but you know, most of my friends were from the area. So, you know, they would speak either Spanish or Catalan at home, which is the language in Catalonia, where Barcelona is. And obviously I had to study it at school. So like I had that as a kid, I had the ear for it. And then when I came back, my third year of university, I came to study for the academic year to like remember my Spanish again and perfect it.
Right.
And I'll admit that, you know, when you get a Spanish boyfriend, you tend to learn the language a little bit better.
Yes, you do.
And I really kind of dove into it. So I was like, no, I'm here to like remember my Spanish. I'm here to really connect with the culture. And so I didn't really spend any time with people from the US or that were English speakers until I met my now husband, which was 10 years ago.
Tess.
11. I was like, oh my gosh, how long? It's 11. Oh my God.
Oh, Tess.
Years. Wow. Yeah, it's been a while.
That is so funny. Normally it's the guy is like,
We're both like that. We know each other well. We're like, it's my mom that sends us like the, you know, like happy anniversary. We're like, oh yeah, it's our anniversary.
Yeah, people like, should we be doing something? Should we be celebrating?
We just take each day and enjoy the day. You know, I think that for both of us, that's what's important.
I think so as well. I mean, being present is definitely very important. Now, in our sis chat, you mentioned having stress and anxiety at a young age. What can you share about your personal experience of growing up with that, and how has it impacted your childhood and your teenage years?
So my first, let's call it a panic attack, was when I was like 2 or 3.
Wow.
And my dad, this is my dad's story. I don't really remember it, right? I was quite young. But my dad found me in my room. Like they couldn't find me for a while. So they were like searching around the house, like, where'd Tess go? He finds me in my room and I'm sat there like next to my bed, just bawling my eyes out and just like sobbing and I just couldn't breathe. And he's like, what happened? You know, like, did your brothers do something? Like I have 2 older brothers. You know, what happened? Like, I was like, no. And then like, eventually I calmed down enough. He got me calmed down enough that he was like, so what's, you know, what's causing this? And I was really distraught because in my 2-3-year-old mind, you know, in the future, I was going to be a veterinarian and I was going to have lots of horses under my care. But I was also going to be a country Western singer.
Okay.
And so how, you know, and I was just so distraught because I was like, how am I going to go on tour as a country Western singer when I've had all these sick horses that I have to take care of? You know, the sick horses are going to be ill. And like, I was just like, how is that going to happen? You know, I can't do
really
both
stressed
things
out about it.
And my dad was like, oh boy. She's going to have some hard times in the future. yeah, so thankfully, he like talked me down. He's like, like when you get to that point, if you are a country western singer and a vet, like you can hire people to take care of the horses when you're gone, and I was like, oh, okay. All right. Yeah, no, yeah, I can get help. Okay. um
Perspective,
but yeah, so this is my life growing up, as I've always been very much in my head of like what's going to happen in the future, right? And how can I control those things that may or may not happen, but to me are definitely going to happen, right? Or how can I make sure that they don't happen, or how can I support those that need me to support them. But then also I would like, over the years I kind of went back into like the past as well, like, oh, I can't believe I said that, like what are they going to think about me, or I did that thing, so it was very, I didn't know how to be in the present. I was very much either in the future or in the past, and both things just stressed me out. I was always in my head. I was not like I said, like I was always making up stories, right? Like I was always in my head. I was always inventing things. My imagination was brilliant. It still is okay. It's not as good as it used to be, but like, yes. And sometimes it just got out of hand, and I didn't know how to pull myself back in. So one of the things that I found though is, because I spent all this time outside growing up, like when I went outside, when I was connecting with the natural world, that's actually when I was like starting to feel more grounded, more relaxed. I was able to kind of leave those thoughts, right? And really, connect with something else that wasn't just my thoughts. And so when we moved to Spain, obviously, we lived in Barcelona. We didn't, we lived in a big city. We didn't live out in the country. So it wasn't quite the same, just being able to go in the backyard and go down to the creek and like play in the water, right? Like I had to figure out another way to do it. So I would go out into the park, and I would like, there's a lovely little park behind our house. And so I'd walk in the trees in the park, and there was like a little hill up above, and I could just sit there under the trees on the hill and just kind of look out over the city. And that was my happy place. That was like my spot where I would go to just ground. And at the time, I didn't think anything about it. I was like, okay, this is how I support myself, right? Like,
right.
I'm connecting with something. I know that going outside is helping me. I know like connecting with the trees is helping me, but I didn't really like now through my studies and like, oh, there's a lot of research that goes, to like, when you go outside into nature, this is actually really good for you, right? Like it helps reduce cortisol levels, and it helps you like feel more grounded, and can help you focus, sleep better, all of these wonderful things. But at the time I didn't know that. I was just like, my body, that's just what my body did naturally. And so when we moved back to the US, as I said earlier, like I didn't ever really feel connected again living in the US. It wasn't my place. And don't get me wrong, I love it. I love Oregon. I love my family. I love my friends there. And I had a wonderful childhood and teenage years. I'm not saying I didn't, but it never felt like home again in the aspect of that this is where I need to be.
Right.
And that caused a lot of stress. And, I had many struggles with anxiety because of it. And I would, go on long walks in the forest behind my parents' house. And that was like my happy place again.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And then, over the years, like I've just been able to, you still connect with that. But then because of my studies and more burnout and anxious episodes in my life, like I have decided that I really needed to figure out how, I can't just always go outside, right? Like I need to figure out there's has to be tools that I have in me So what are they? And so like one of those things was I started doing yoga. At the beginning, I did not like yoga. It was not, I didn't connect with it. So for anyone that's listening and they're like, oh yeah, yoga, everyone says that yoga is good for stress and anxiety. It is, but meet yourself where you are and find a teacher that like you connect with in that moment.
Absolutely.
My first connection in yoga was not with a teacher that I connected with. And I was like, what is this?
Yeah, that's interesting.
And so it took me a while to get to that point. But there was something about it that like something inside of me was like, yes, this is good, but I don't like it, like, so I kept kind of coming back. I kept kind of coming back to it. And then little by little, I was like, okay, no, yeah, I like it. Maybe I like it. Maybe I like it a little bit more. Maybe I like it a lot more. And then in 2019, I was like, you know what, I'm going to go out and I'm going to study to become a yoga teacher because I want to dive into this a little bit more. So I went to India, trained on an ashram outside of Mysore. And I never thought I was, I'm not going to say never thought I would teach it, but I wasn't sure I was ever going to use it. I was like, you know what, this is something that I want to do for me. I want to gain from it for my own tools. And I'm so glad that I did, because in 2020, like, so over this whole period of time, starting in 2014, maybe 2014, 2015, I started working in a job that, it was great. It paid the bills. I liked my colleagues, but it was not what I wanted to be doing.
Right.
And I like kind of went back into these episodes of anxiety again, and I really became disconnected with myself, like more than I had been. And I think that's why I wanted to go to India, go to the ashram, because I was like, something inside of me was like, I need a change, right? I need to do something different because I know that I'm not doing okay. But I didn't like, but that wasn't like a conscious thing, right? It was very, very much a subconscious, like, something needs to change. I don't know what it is. I'm going to go to India and see if I can figure it out. Eat, pray, love style.
Well, why an ashram opposed to a traditional healthcare professional?
Like I said, like, I don't like that. I was connected. I was feeling connected with my yoga practice. And it was just something that I was like, I just want to dive into it. I want to learn a little bit about it more.
Okay.
And once again, this isn't me consciously going into it going, my mental health isn't good. Like at the time I was like, I've always struggled with anxiety. Like, things are a bit stressful. That's just life. It's normal that I'm ending up on the kitchen floor sobbing my eyes out like more than once a month, like it's totally normal that I can't sleep at night. Like, isn't everyone dealing with this? Like, obviously
I was definitely dealing with it. I definitely was.
And I think, you just kind of go, well, this is the life I have, so I'm just going to push through it. And you don't always think of how can I, actually, it's not the life I need to be living. I can make differences. And that doesn't necessarily mean quitting your job. Like in the end, I ended up quitting my job. Because in 2020, after COVID hit, I got way worse. And like just things, I fell apart mentally, I fell apart physically. My relationship with my husband was strained. I needed to do something different.
Like a reset.
I needed a reset. That's exactly what I needed. And so, we had the conversation, my husband and I, and we decided like, this is the best thing for me. I'm going to quit my job. It maybe not the best thing financially for both of us. He is a touring actor, which is really cool, but in the middle of a pandemic, not so cool, because he couldn't work. So financially, not the best time for me to be quitting my job, but I needed to do it. I needed that reset because I knew if I didn't, things were going to get a lot uglier, and it was already really ugly. Like like I said, I was falling apart mentally.
And that's good that you were able to identify the moment that you're like, I really need to stop to fix. That's really good, because some people just blow up.
Yeah. Well, there was a blow up. I injured myself to the point I couldn't move. Like
Oh my gosh.
it wasn't good. And yeah, so, I finished my contract. I got to the end of the contract, and I was like, okay, that's me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to teach yoga.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, it was like, okay, I'm just going to teach yoga, and I'm going to train. I'm going to do other things on the side for me, things I've always wanted to do, but didn't know I wanted to do them. Right. So I dove into like understanding, well, first off, trying to figure out how to get my body back so I can move again. So like studied yoga for pelvic health. And then like, I was like, yeah, there's a lot of mental stuff going on here. Like, okay, like mental health and aware yoga. Oh, mindfulness. Yeah, let's dive into mindfulness coaching. And so like all of these different things, and trauma informed. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on there that I didn't really think about before, but I need to sort that itself out for me. And then all of those things, like I started sort of sharing them with my students. I started sharing it with my family and friends. And it was amazing because like, this is something I was learning for myself, but because I was sharing it with other people, they were also gaining from it. And they're like, oh, Tess, this is really good. Like, can you tell me more about this? Or, hey, like you told us about this. So I took it into my own life, and it's incredible the difference that it's made. Or, like just these little ripples that were going out from me that were like helping others. I was like, this is it. Like, this is what I should be doing.
You found your calling.
I found my calling. So I was like, you know what, this is what I want to focus on. I want to focus on stress and burnout. And I was like, you know what, and the best way for me to continue to learn and do that is to like train to become a yoga therapist. So that's why I started that. Somatic healing, I'm also training in that, so it's like I'm trying to combine it all, like the coaching, the yoga therapy, yoga, and just really helping others meet themselves where they are. Like, so a lot of times, when we think of yoga in the Western world, we think of like just doing these poses on a mat, which yes, there is definitely that. There's also a lot of breath work, but the whole point of yoga is to feel more connected to yourself and to really learn about yourself and to meet yourself with compassion and love. And then to be able to share that with the world around you.
I agree.
And so, that's what I was like, you know what, this is like, I've gone through all these things. I've learned so much because of it, and I don't regret anything. And I want to put that out there that like, I don't, a lot of times we look back and we go, oh, why did I do that? That was silly. Like, oh, how could have I let myself get to that point? Yeah, looking about it now with the gaze I have now, fine. But at the time, as I said, I was so disconnected. I was just like, yeah, that's normal. Like I didn't put the two into like the 2 and 400 to get together that this was actually an issue and I can change it. And so that, I now want to make that difference in someone else's life. That's to tell them, you don't have to go through that. You don't have to do that. I went through it, and let me help you to not.
I love that. I love that about you. And it seems like, your life struggles definitely did help you transition into the burnout coach you are today. So what does your Burnout to Rebirth program entail?
So it very much entails of meeting yourself where you are and starting off from the very beginning of like, how am I right now? And looking at the good, the bad, and the ugly, all of it. But without judgment, right? And it's just like putting it out there in front of you, like, what's going on with me right now? And then also talking about where do I want to be? And really looking at like, one of the things I have all my clients do at the very beginning is like, sit down and like write out, take some time with this to really write out what your dream day looks like.
Okay.
And not just on like I'd like to, wake up in this beautiful place and do this wonderful thing, but like, how do you feel? So in each of these things, how do you feel inside? And I think that this is a really important part, because in our culture, in our lifestyle, we become very disconnected with ourselves. And we don't feel, right? Because a lot of times it's scary to feel. Like that was a lot of my issue, is I didn't, when I did I think that was some of my issue with the yoga at the beginning, is like, I started tuning into things that I was like, oh, that's scary. I don't want to deal with that, you know? So like, you know, just to really set out, like, how do you want to feel in those moments? You know, like, yes, okay, fine. Maybe you have this wonderful day, but how do you feel during that wonderful day physically? How do you feel during that wonderful day mentally, emotionally, spiritually? Like, looking at it from a holistic point of view, right?
So you force them to go deep.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because you have to. But the thing is as well, like, this isn't like written in stone then, right? Like, it's like, okay, this is what you look at now. And then we start to build in, okay, so here are the things you're struggling with. Here's, you know, like your dream day. And very much focusing on the physical, like, how am I feeling these things, right? Like, I'm not a therapist. I'm very clear with this. Like, I work with some wonderful therapists. One of them who happens to be the co-host on the Happy Edit. And, you know, like, if I'm working with a person, I'm like, you know what, like, I really think that, like, you could do with going into the story of things, like, please go work with a therapist. I'm happy to work alongside them. Or maybe just focusing on that first and then coming back to me. Like, I'm very much like to stay within my realm. I don't want to, you know, to be like, oh, I can do everything, because I can't, and I don't want to.
No,
I want to do what I'm
then
good
that'll
at.
get you burned out.
Because that'll burn me out too. And we want to keep everyone at a balance, right? And so, you know, like, how do you feel in these things? So, okay, you're struggling with this thing. How is it making you feel it? Where do you feel it in your body? Right? And then how can we give you tools to help you find your balance? So if you're really up here, like a lot of times I was and still can be, I'm going to be very honest, like, this is a journey. I'm not perfect by any means. If you're really up here, you know, we need to work on helping you come back. If you're down here, if you're exhausted and in that dorsal response, right, you can't do anything, then you need to come a little bit back up, right? And it's, as I say, it's a journey. So it's not like every day you're going to be here. Like, you're going to notice, okay, I'm up here. All right, how can I come back down a little bit? I'm down here. How can I come back up a little bit? And it's finding that way of, we don't do these big jumps, right? It's staying sort of in that sort of nice, smooth,
gradual transition to center, so to speak.
Exactly. And so it's like giving you the tools to help meet you where you are. You know, so if you're up here, how can we get you back down here? If you're down here, how can we get you back up, down, you know, up here? So it's practicing those things together. You know, it's every day, like, really looking in and saying, okay, well, not every day, but, you know, you every day with me once a week. And then I'm also here, you know, to support you throughout it, but, like, you know, very, like, boundaries. I like to keep boundaries as well, you know, and I think it's important that we all have boundaries.
I do think that's very important, that we all have boundaries.
But, you know, and so it's working with those like, starting to pinpoint what are our triggers, what are the messengers that we have that bring up these things, whether it's a limiting belief, whether it's, you know, because a lot of the times when we go into that stress response, it comes from a limiting belief that we might have, right? Like, maybe, you know, you don't feel like you're worthy of doing something, so you're going up here and then you're going to your head and you're like, oh, well, I can't do it because of this and this, and what if this goes wrong, what if that goes wrong, right? So it's like, okay, like, what brought that up? Okay, how can we reframe that to start to unpick and let it go, right? And forgive ourselves for buying into it at the beginning as well. You know, like, it's no one's fault, like, because of our experiences that we have in our life, because of our interactions with people, because of everything that goes on. You know, if you think of yourself like an onion, you know, all these things kind of like go on top, and then so it's like, little by little, unpeeling those things that are coming up and saying, okay, well, why is that being brought up? And then what can I do to start releasing it? And so it's, you know, it's a process, it's a journey. And, you know, one of the things I like to do to bring into my sessions as well is something called Yoga Nidra, which is a guided awareness. And for those of you who don't know, it's like a meditation, but it gets you to a state that it's like you're in a deep sleep state, but it's a receptive deep sleep state.
Oh, that
And so
sounds interesting.
it's fascinating, and it's so good. And so little by little, when you get into this state, you're resting. It's amazing for your body to rest and just to heal through that rest, right? B, like, we can start to unpick these limiting beliefs that we're holding subconsciously, and using tools to kind of go, like, working with the opposite to start to neutralize them on a mental level as well. So we're releasing it from the body physically, we're starting to work on it mentally, but without having to go into the story of it. And so it's a beautiful practice. So, like, I like to mix all these different things in, from the coaching, from yoga, from yoga therapy. Like, I try to meet every person I work with in a very holistic manner, and very much where they are in that moment.
I love that. And I love that you really help to navigate them through that journey. And some of you've listed some common signs and symptoms that your clients have been experiencing. Are there any other signs and symptoms of burnout that you have come across?
Yeah. I'm just like going in, like, which ones? So exhaustion is one of them. I think I mentioned that. Just being completely to the point where your mind, your body cannot do more. Like, you're just like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done with absolutely everything. And another would be, having these really stressful, overwhelm, maybe panic attacks, right? But it doesn't necessarily have to get to that point. It could be smaller, but these could be like little niggles, like you're not sleeping well because you're thinking about what you have to do. You could be like sitting down to do a project and you just can't focus on the project because you're like, well, oh, maybe I'll do these other things first. Like, that's kind of a sign that, like, oh, something's coming up. Like, why am I avoiding it? Like, there's something that's coming up there. Another could just be, like, it's not always the case, but a lot of times when we're stressed and overwhelmed, our bodies are exhausted and we get like twitches, like your eye could start twitching, for example, or like, you get sort of muscle twitches. Because why is this happening? When we're in a stress response, our body is going into what's called the sympathetic nervous system. Like, it's like the sympathetic nervous system is like running high. We have two parts of our autonomic nervous system, a sympathetic and our parasympathetic. Our sympathetic is what, like, the fight, flight, freeze response. Our parasympathetic is the calm, rest, digest. And so we want to have them more or less here, right? We don't want one up there. We don't want the other up there. We don't want, right? But it's like, to have that homeostasis, to have that balance position, we want more or less them sort of here. And of course, it's like up and down, like, it's never perfect, right? And so when we're in this stress response, not only is our brain going, right? It's sending signals out into your body that releases hormones like cortisol, that releases signals to your muscles that, like, I need to tense up, I need to move. And so in short bursts, this is really good, right? Because it gets you out of those stressful situations. Maybe, heaven forbid, you ever get attacked by a bear, for example.
God forbid.
Like, your body will help you move, hopefully, out of that situation, right? Because it goes into that stress response, and it your muscles are going, oh, okay, I need to tighten up, I need to move, or that sort of thing. But another example might be, you're in a stressful situation at work, you're like meeting with someone that you feel maybe you're not worthy of meeting, and you're like, oh my gosh, like, what are they going to think about, like, what my decision is, like, oh my goodness, and so your body's going, oh, well, you're being attacked. And so your body isn't, it's doing these things because it's wanting to protect you. It's wanting to get you out of out of harm's way. And in short bursts, as I said, this is going to be a really good thing. But the issue is because our day-to-day life, that we live in our society tends to be a lot of stressful things coming at us. And our proprioceptive system, the system in our body that's like looking around, scanning, the environment, going, oh, that's danger. Oh, no, that's okay. Oh, that's danger. It doesn't know when there's like proper danger or when it's just something that maybe makes us feel uncomfortable, right?
Right.
And so it stays up there unless we're able to, use tools to bring it back down. And when it stays up there, our muscles are incredibly tight all the time. So let's do a little exercise. Do you mind?
Let's go.
Okay, so make a fist. All right, make a really tight fist and really pulling the fingers in. Okay, now just hold that fist as I talk for a little bit. So when we're in this stress response, right, our muscles are tightening up because they're wanting us to get out of that situation, right? And when we don't let go, these muscles kind of get stuck in that situation. So we've not been holding it for very long, but little by little start to release the fingers. And you might notice that it's actually kind of hard, right? It's like your fingers aren't fully wanting to release very easily, and so this is our body when we go into these stress response for long periods of time. And that was only a couple of seconds, right? When we go into these stress responses for long periods of time, those muscles get really incredibly tight, and this causes problems physically in our body. It causes problems mentally, because when our muscles continue to keep that tightness, that sends signals up to the brain that something's still not right. So it's this negative cycle, and we hold these things in our body. We hold our trauma, we hold everything unless we're able to digest it and release it.
Wow.
And
thank you for that explanation.
Yeah, you're
because
welcome.
It helps me to understand some of the things that I've actually been going through. My eyes twitch. And this is the reason why I was up at 6 a.m. this morning, because I was like, I don't want to oversleep and miss our interview. But now I'm thinking, oh, I didn't send the Zoom information. I didn't send the other stuff because I was celebrating my birthday.
Which I'm so glad you did.
And I was thinking, okay, I want to make sure she has everything. I want to make sure, I'm fully prepared. My voice isn't too raspy, all these different things that I'm thinking that I need to prepare for this interview. And I wasn't super anxious about it. I was super excited about it, but I didn't have eye twitching yet. But in other instances in my life where I get really stressed about stuff, like the other day, you did mention meeting a supervisor. I had a meeting with my supervisor, his supervisor, and the manager. And when that thing popped up on my calendar, I'm like, oh my God, why am I meeting with all these people? I told my husband, I'm like, am I getting fired today? I'm like, well, the meeting invite came on a Wednesday and the actual meeting was for the following Monday. And I'm like, well, if they're going to fire me, they're not going to wait till Monday and have me work like 2 extra days. So my mind just started racing. So, then of course, I have to seek the information. I asked my supervisor, hey, what's this meeting all about? He didn't know, so I really appreciate how you really just tie that all together for me. So now I understand. And then you mentioned something that's cortisol, and I'm like, cortisol makes you fat. That when you worry, it makes you gain weight, doesn't it?
Tends to. No, it doesn't, not always, but yeah, of course, because your body is trying to protect itself. So when it's, one way that it thinks it can do that is through fat, because fat, starts to protect the organs. So it makes it harder for, if we're very much still like, while our society and our like everyday life has changed a lot, our bodies are very much still in that aspect of caveman, right? And so like, oh, if I have more fat, then there's going to be more covering if I get bit by, that tiger or something, whatever it is.
Oh gosh.
Sorry. But so you're protecting yourself for short periods, right? Because of course that fat can lead to other issues, but I want to put out there too that just because you have fat on your body doesn't mean that that's what's causing all your issues, but like so some of those things can be very connected and correlated because of this holding within the body.
Right. So in your opinion, what are some misconceptions people have about burnout, and how do you address those misconceptions in your coaching?
I think one misconception that I've encountered is that taking a week or 2 week break is going to make every difference.
Like going on vacation?
Right. Yeah. Like, oh, I need to take this break because I'm having these panic attacks. Maybe I go on vacation. Maybe I just get a note from my doctor and I get 2 weeks off of work. Yes, you probably need that if you're having those panic attacks. I'm not saying you don't. But the issue is that when you go back, you're probably going back into the same negative cycles, right? So it's learning instead. Once again, you probably do need those 2 weeks, but during those 2 weeks, allow your body to rest, to digest what's happening, to start to heal again, physically, mentally, emotionally, right? But also see if you can start to put in little tiny practices that help give back every single day. And it's, maybe it's starting to create boundaries, as what I was saying before. Like, one of my things was, especially when I first started working for myself, like, but also before, oh, someone like, I need to do everything now. Like, I can't create like a hierarchy list. Nope. Someone email me, I have to respond,
Oh, yeah.
Life is going to end if I don't respond and within the next 5 minutes. From my own personal experience, it probably not. They can probably wait, at least a day. And if it can't, like, okay, fine. But it's, putting in those practices of saying, okay, so after a certain time during a day, I'm not going to respond to any emails,
Yeah. And some people have a problem saying no.
And a lot of people have a problem saying no. I know I was definitely one of those people. Like, oh, you need help? Yep, I will come and do it right now. And so it's learning how to integrate these things into your life. And work-life balance, yes, I like the term, but at the same time I don't, because there's this perception that balance means like it has to be exactly the same. And I think that we need balance really should be about meeting yourself where you are and saying, okay, what do I need right now? Like maybe you're in a time of your life, you're in a season of your life that you can work a lot more because you have that energy to do it, but you also need to bring in times where you have those down moments that you can rest, that you can connect with your friends, with your family. So important. Social connection is so important. Where you can moving every single day. And I don't necessarily mean like, okay, every single day, go and work out for 2 hours. I mean, 10 minutes a day, go and move, after sitting for 3 hours in front of your computer, like maybe not doing 3 hours, but like, and 2, and just taking a 1-minute break to stretch.
Yeah.
And like these little things that we can little tiny things that we can add into our life that can over the period of time make an incredible difference. So, it's one of these things that, yes, like, and actually I was talking to someone about this the other day, and they definitely needed it. They were having like major panic attacks, stress overload, they're working, they're doing their masters, they're finishing up their master's thesis, and like just couldn't do it all. And so went to the doctor. The doctor gave them 2 weeks off of work so they could finish their master's thesis, which is wonderful. Gave the person some medication to help them relax. Great. But, and all these things I think are wonderful, but they didn't do anything extra for themselves so that they don't go back into this again. Right. And so they were like, yeah, so it's wonderful. I'm great. I've got these wonderful pills that are keeping me super relaxed. And then I'm going to go back to work and it's all going to be like, and really happy. And I'm like, yeah, okay. I wasn't working in a, professional aspect in this. So it's not up to me to say anything. If they ask me, then I will very happily, say my opinion, but until then, it's not my place. And, to me, it was like, oh, okay, well, If they were to have asked me my opinion, good, I'm glad you got that time, because you've noticed that this is not working, right? You're not managing your time well, you're overloading yourself, you're doing too much, and you're not taking breaks for yourself. You're not meeting yourself where you are. You're not asking yourself, how can I, every single day, how can I give myself a little bit more? How can I do something for me that will help me reach that balance point again? You know, and it's not always easy. It's not always easy. And when we are so disconnected from ourselves, it's very difficult because we don't notice that we're in those moments, right? And so when you start to create this practice of every single day checking in, okay, what's one thing I can do for myself today? You know, that starts to help you reconnect with you in a compassionate way. And so, you know, you're not just checking in and going, oh yeah, I'm exhausted. Oh, well, suck it up.
Yeah, you know, I have actually been going out to my vegetable garden. We've started a garden last year. And so I work from home. I'm still remote, you know, until they've said, hey, it's mandatory, you go in the office. I'm going to always choose working remotely. And so we made a vegetable garden last year, and I didn't realize how much peace it brought me to just, when I take my break, I started a routine of going out, I water my plants, I talk with them, I come back in, I make me a cup of tea, I get back to work. At lunch, I talk with my husband, and then my second break, I go back out, I go water them again, I come back in, I have a snack. So even those small little moments that I spend in my garden, just de-stressing or decompressing from what I'm doing, because sometimes I need to just really step away from the laptop. And it just really helps me so much to just come back.
Yeah.
So doing those small things, I love what you're saying. Doing those small things would actually just really help you to just reel yourself back in.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Now,
And
in
being
your,
that,
now,
oh,
could
sorry.
you, I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead.
Could you discuss like any specific success stories of clients you've worked with and highlight how they were able to overcome burnout and find a healthier work-life balance?
Yeah. So I have several people I'm thinking of right now, but for one person in particular, they had a lot of things going on for them in their work, but also in their personal life that was just too much. And they were not dealing with it very well. So they were working with a therapist, and they also started working with me. Which once again, I think this is a really good way, like, especially if you've got a lot of story coming up and you need to talk through it, you need to work through that, like, please go work with a therapist. They are amazing. They're very much there to support you. And so what we were working on more was like, integrating those work-life boundaries. And then also working through like, okay, where am I holding my emotions in my body? Where am I holding this stress? How can I start to release it? How can I start to notice it, right? Like, oh, I'm noticing that I'm really like holding in my shoulders, I'm holding my chest, or I'm really holding the stress in my abdomen, or I'm clenching my jaw, right? Like, we hold our stress in different places, so it depends on the person, right? But like noticing, just noticing, oh, am I doing this? And then how, like, we work together to say, okay, how can we start releasing those things? So when you start to notice them, what are the tools that you can use to start release that stress? And then also, you know, what caused that, you know, like, what are those limiting beliefs maybe that are coming up, and how can we start to reframe them from a somatic point of view? So she was working on the story part with her therapist, and we were working on it from like a physical, somatic, like, where are you holding these limiting beliefs, and how can you release them?
Like more of a holistic aspect.
Yeah, exactly. And now she's doing great, and I'm so proud of her.
Oh,
Actually,
that's awesome.
she's currently traveling and taking some time for herself, and I love it so much for her. And she's just in a much better place. So I'm very, very happy.
That's
for her.
awesome. That's a really, really good success story. So now you yourself has made it through the fire. You become this successful business leader, helping others. What do you think attributed to your success with your clients?
Being me. One of the things that a lot of people say is, like, to me is just how easy it is to work with me and just like be honest with me, because I'm honest with them. Mm-hmm. Obviously I don't necessarily go into my story or anything with them, but like,
Oh, you don't?
What I mean is, like, if I'm having like difficulty in moments, I'm not going to put that on them. Like I'm not going to load them with my stuff. I share my story in a way that helps, like, show them, okay, this is what I've gone through. This is how I've, supported myself. But like, if I'm having a really bad week, I'm not going to be like, oh my gosh, I had this come up and that come up, that come up.
In that aspect.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. Like I show up very honestly. And I hold space very honestly. And I think people really appreciate that, when you show up as your authentic self, they are more likely to want to be their authentic selves. And I would, at least I like to believe that is, one of the qualities. It's what people tell me, so I'd like to believe it. One of the qualities that people really appreciate is that, when they come and they work with me, they know that I'm always going to be honest with them, in a compassionate way. And that allows them to be honest with themselves and to really meet themselves where they are.
And because you're relatable as well, because you've gone through some of what they may be going through, that kind of helps them feel more comfortable sharing what their experiences are with you.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm sure that is very true. Yes.
So you've overcome so much. If you were to write a book about your life, what would it be about, and what would you title it?
Oh my gosh. I would love to write a book about my life, and I know that you are, so I cannot wait until that comes out. What would I title it? I have no idea.
I know I put you on the spot.
I think I would talk about learning, like, my journey to really connecting and starting to love myself, which I didn't do for a long time, and it's still sometimes difficult to do, because we're human beings. There's good, there's bad, and there's ugly about us.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's hard to acknowledge that all of those things are important. And to really sit with them and be with them and allow them, and not to judge ourselves for those experiences that maybe we have that are good or bad, or at the time maybe thinking different than you, somehow it affects you later on and you're like, whoa, I didn't realize that at the time. And I don't know, maybe, I have no idea, but being you, or being me. Being me.
Or just being.
I like that. Or just being.
I'm titling this episode "From Anxious to Empowered: The Journey of a Burnout Coach." Maybe some aspect of that.
Yes. I love it.
So have you thought about, have you held any retreats, like yoga retreats?
So I do work with a mountain guide, and we take people on hiking and yoga retreats. It's called Yoga Trek Asturias. Yeah, it's lovely. But these are just, it's very much about connecting with nature, and connecting with yourself, or the people that maybe are there. We always have really small groups. And so sometimes, you know, people bring their friends with them, and sometimes they come alone. And it's just beautiful, the connection that people make, because it is such a pure environment. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's...
How often do you have them?
We do them in the summer, because here up north in the winter is not nice.
It's not nice here in the winter, that's for sure. I'm in Illinois.
So usually we start them at the end of May, and we go through, like, most of them are between May and September. Then we usually do like one at the end of October as well, so like 1 or 2 a month.
So you just do like the hike, and then you stop, do some yoga, and then continue on?
Yeah, and exactly. So usually we'll start off wherever we start off, we'll like just kind of take a pause to just check in. Usually I'll just like take people through a little bit of breath work and just kind of talk about how the breath works, because that is our superpower. There's so much to say about breath. That's for another episode though. Or just contact me and I will tell you as much as you want to know, and more probably than you want to know. So I go into a little bit about breath, and mainly about like breath, how it, like, we can use it in our day-to-day life, but also how we can use it on that hike, right? And how we can use it to empower us to keep moving forward and that sort of thing. And then like practicing that a little bit, and then we'll move on to, we'll hike a ways, we'll move on to another beautiful spot, spectacular views. Like Asturias is like the Switzerland of Spain. Like, we have these stunning mountains and views that we that we go up into, and you know, then we'll do like a yoga session, like a more of a movement and breathwork session, and a little bit of meditation at the end. But it's always very much geared towards the group that's there, and it's also geared to like the hike that we're doing, you know. So if like people are feeling really tired, like I do certain things, I meet them where they are. That's the whole point. And then take them to that more balanced state. So usually by the end, they're feeling more energetic, and they're not feeling quite as tight. And then we're able to, you know, to make it up the rest of the way. And then if it's an overnight retreat, because sometimes we just do day ones, then you know, we'll do one like with the sunset, and you know, very much bringing people down into more of a relaxed state, and do that sort of thing. And then usually the second and third day we'll do more of those movement. You know, if we do hiking around different areas, we'll do more movement. Maybe they'll bring in some more just meditation without the movement, and we'll maybe, you know, find a nice spot in the sun and do a little meditation there. Or we'll do like a walking meditation as well. So we'll bring in that meditation and mindfulness into the actual hiking as well. And then so we you know, sessions for the sunset, sessions for the sunrise, just taking it through like the whole hike, you know, going a little ways, pausing.
I love it.
And then also, like, from like the guide point of view, like, he's wonderful, and he goes into like the history of the area, and he goes into like the flora and the fauna, and explaining those different things. And I learn so much every time I go.
And you know, just breaking it up like that, you know, it makes the hike more interesting, because now if you have a beginner that's never hiked, they don't really realize that it can be strenuous. So kind of like breaking that up really makes it easier to really do that trek. Man, we're gonna have to address my jealousy for not being in Spain on another at another time. But before we close, Tess, what advice do you have for individuals that are currently experiencing anxiety or stress and want to prevent burnouts in their lives? And are there any practical steps they can take?
Yeah, well, I would definitely say meet yourself where you are. And meet yourself with compassion. Be your best friend. And this is not always easy to do, especially when we're in cycles that we don't do this, you know. But listen to how you talk to yourself. Listen to that negative self-talk that many of us can be in. Me as well. And I'm still working on this.
Yes, it's a journey for all of us.
And and just at the beginning of the morning, like when you first wake up, maybe in your morning shower, ask yourself, how am I doing today? Like, and scan through your body, like how am I doing physically? Do I have any tension anywhere? Am I feeling tight anywhere? Am I feeling loose anywhere? How am I doing emotionally, intellectually? Like, just going through those layers of yourself. And then ask yourself, is like, what is one thing that I can do for myself today that is just that 10 minutes that I can do for me? And do it.
Yeah, I love it.
And it's not always easy, and I get it, because you're 10 minutes on one hand, it doesn't seem like it's a lot of time, but on the other hand, it also can seem like, oh my gosh, how could I fit that into my schedule because I'm so busy? So it's as I said earlier, you can plan it into your schedule. You can have like a fixed time, so it's a habit. Maybe it's that first thing you do in the morning. Maybe it's something that you do in the middle of your day. Maybe it's something you do in the evening. Get someone to help you to show up for yourself. Ask for support. And that could be a family member, that could be a friend, that could be a therapist or a coach, like whoever it is. Ask for support. And also, when you feel like you're in those really anxious moments, help yourself come back into you. When we are in our anxious moments, we're in the past, we're in the future. We are not in the present. So when we come back to the present, we release all of that. Stress does not exist in the present. So how can we do that? There's a tool that I really like to use for myself, and I know it's really helpful for other people. People might know about it already. It's called the 5 senses tool, and you can use your hand if that's available for you. You can go, okay, what are 5 things that I can see? So you look around your space. What are 5 things that I can see? 4, what are 4 things that I can hear? Right? So you listen to your space. And maybe the last thing that you listen for is you. Can I hear my own breath? Right? 3, what are 3 things that I can smell? Touch. What are 3 things that I can touch? And that's not necessarily with your hand. That's like, okay, I can feel my clothes on my body. I can feel my feet on the ground. I can touch whatever it is. Maybe you're holding, a warm mug. Oh, I can feel the warmth of the mug, of my drink, whatever it is, or the cool of the water bottle, like whatever it might be, right? 2, what can I smell? Okay, what, if any of these senses, that if they are not available for you, that's okay. Just skip that one. And I say this because I know some people are still, with COVID, they lost their sense of smell. Not everyone has gotten it back, but we all have different abilities, and some of those senses just aren't available. So, just meet yourself once again where you are. And then the last one, is there anything that you can taste? Like maybe you have a mug and you take in, drink or something, and you're like, okay, yeah, what can I taste? What can I taste in that drink? But also, like, maybe just noticing the flavor of whatever last you ate in your mouth, or whatever it is, right? And the whole idea is to bring you from out here, because you're already out here, and to bring you back into your body, right? To really bring you back into the present. And that's when we take out those moments to really tune into our surroundings, to tune into how we are connecting with our surroundings, that brings us back to the present. So it doesn't have to be just that. There's loads of other tools, but that is one really, really
I love that
helpful tool.
I love that tool, because when you wake up in the morning and you're brushing your teeth or brushing your hair, whatever, you can totally do all those things, right where you are. You don't have to take any extra time to do it at all. That's amazing, Tess. I really appreciate that. Where can people find you on your social networks?
Well, I'm on a lot of them, but LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook are like the ones that I'm really connected on. At Twitter, I'm on, but I don't tend to go on it. So Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn, that's where you can find me. Tess Jewell-Larsen, or Tess Jewell-Larsen Coaching, but really just put Tess Jewell-Larsen in. I'm sure it'll come up, because I have a very unique name.
Yes, you do. Yes, I love it. Well, Tess, this has been so much fun, and I'm so glad that we were introduced. I've learned so much. I'm definitely going to use the five senses. I think that that'll really be perfect for me because I'm always trying to, even when I'm in my office space here, have those five senses. So my wall is purple and I have my candles and, I like to have a view, even though my view is of the neighbor's house. I like to be able to see outside. So I'm always really in tune with that. So it was just perfect. So now I feel like I was actually doing something for myself without even knowing that I was doing something for myself. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for holding space with me and being flexible to record on a Sunday as well.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here. It's been really wonderful to talk with you and to share with you.
Yeah, I think my listeners are going to be so amazed with all the things that you've shared. I think it's so valuable to everything. And especially like you said, a lot of people are still recovering from COVID and all the different things that they're going back, maybe processing, going back into the office where they've been working remote. There's a lot of people that really need to just reduce their stress. There would be less road rage.
Yes.
A lot of that in the news lately. So I really appreciate you coming on here and just dropping all your nuggets, drop the mic, everything.
Well, thank you again. I'm really happy that I had the chance to be here.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, we will talk soon. Peace and blessings.
Bye.
Let me turn my YouTube off. Hopefully my